So hi, this is Marilyn. Thanks for tuning in. I am going to do a quick video on not only marking this star quilt, but I also wanted to just give an example of how you may want to baste with pins when you're doing something like this. So I have my pounce pad and I don't want this stencil to move at all. So I'm going to be very careful and I'm actually going to go a little bit more generous on the chalk. I don't know if you saw it, but I tapped it pretty good so that the chalk is coming out and I'm going in sections to make sure that I'm getting a nice crisp transfer. One reason is also because of the color of the fabric. I want the white to show up and so I'm putting on a little bit heavy. And this is important. Check underneath without moving it. In a complex stencil like this, when you move it and you get a little shadow, it can really make it hard to follow. If it's just a single line, edge to edge, not such a big deal. But I want to make sure that I can follow those lines, especially where you see on that side, it's pretty dense with pattern lines. So that's where I'm really concentrating on getting a really good transfer. So the time you spend doing this is so well worth it. Don't be in a hurry at this point because you want to be able to just breeze right through the stitching. So check, double check, add a little more. I think I'm about done here. As you can tell, I'm doing a voiceover. It's just easier. Can't sew and talk, I guess. Oh, here is some hairspray. I also don't want this to move. It probably isn't necessary, but I'm doing it anyway. A light coat. It's just my regular hairspray. It is an aerosol though. Of course, a pump would be a little messy. Dry it, and then I'm going to show you how I pin it. This is just how I do it. There is no rules, but you really should have something that holds your sandwich together, especially on this where I'm so near the edge. If it was in the middle of the quilt, I wouldn't worry so much. You can also use spray adhesive, but I'm going to strategically place these pins where it will hold and where it's out of the way so I don't have to worry about running over them or having to move them as I'm quilting. And this stencil is kind of nice because it has these rather large open areas that I can just pin and there's still space between them so that it's giving it a good secure hold. I'm going to add a couple more. The edges are always important to keep pinned so everything stays nice and flat. And you try not to put them over the chalk lines, that's all. So I'm going to put in a couple more and then I'm going to get on to sewing. And I've done this pattern quite a few times already, and I practiced it quite a bit before I actually put it on this quilt. It's always a good idea, especially something like this. There are a lot of different ways you can follow this line, and go into it with a plan, even though if you're like me, by number three, you think you've got your plan down and you don't concentrate so hard, and then you end up creating a new plan. So it's okay though, because in the end, nobody knows, and maybe you actually created a better plan. So here I am ready to stitch this out, got my gloves on, got everything ready. And before I switch over to music and just have you watch, I just want to say, if you'll notice, I start with the busiest areas first. Um, the reason why is just because it seems easier that way. The chalk hasn't had a chance to really do anything. It's there nice and crisply, and you just get the harder part over with quicker, and that's always good. So I do this part. I've done it a few times. I kind of know what there is there, and that's helpful too. That's why you practice. And so it's also, you know, it doesn't really matter if you mess up on this. You just do the best you can because no matter what, it's going to look good. So I go over this and then I move over to the bigger areas, and so you can see, you'll just follow the line. But I just wanted to tell you, start with the most densely chalked area first. Now all that's left is to trim the edges and bind it, and turns into this. This was a really fun project. I think that stencil looks gorgeous on this quilt. Even though it is to be kind of put together in one giant block as a mandala, you can think differently with it. And remember, the more you get out of your comfort zone, the bigger your comfort zone will get. So don't be afraid of things that you think are beyond your ability to do them, because they're not. Just a little bit of practice is all it takes. Thanks a lot for watching the video. I hope you know that things like pinning and all the different processes you go through to make a quilt, there really isn't one giant set of rules. The rule is that you do what works best for you. Happy quilting. And there's just one thing I want to add. If it looks like it was fun to sew this pattern, it's because it really was. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.